All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Fusion 360 AVA, number 34 to be exact. My name is Brian Mongkolpoonsuk, Application Engineer and Customer Success Manager here at KETIV Technologies. And yeah, thank you guys for joining me on this windy day, Friday morning here in Southern California. Actually, it's windy. I don't know where if you guys are from somewhere else. I don't know how windy it is over there, but it's pretty windy for us here. Make sure to stay away from those trees. I've been seeing a lot of them falling down lately. So anyways, for today's webinar, I wanted to go over how to add text to a 3D body and the various different ways you can do so because of the various different opportunities or the various different issues that I've seen across customers where they're trying to add a text this way, but it's not exactly working out. And I just wanted to make a video so then I can have all the solutions in this video so then it can help solve their issues there. So let's go ahead and talk about why. So this webinar is to help the customers who are experiencing these issues of how to apply the text, but also it's to open up your mind to adding text to your parts in the first place. And if you had an issue with adding text to a curved surface, this is the video for you. And if you didn't have that issue before and you just started thinking about, hey, maybe it's a good idea that I do that, or maybe I was doing it the wrong way before, and now from this video, hopefully you'll learn the best practice in doing so. And the last reason I have on here is so that this video can become a good go-to video, because we're going to be posting this on YouTube in a week or so, that you guys can go and reference and when you're creating text, so you can just scroll through the video and see, oh, I remember Brian showing me how to create a text along a 2D curve. I'm going to skip to that part and follow along here. So goals for today, here are the different approaches we'll be tackling. One is creating text on a curved surface. So similar to the cylindrical shape here, this method will work for something like that, as well as if you had something like a spline, a 3D spline shape surface, the methods today should help you out with that as well. Creating text from a picture. So if you had text that's not necessarily in the text, one of the formats inside of Fusion, if it's a picture, I can show you how to convert that to an SVG and import that in. Creating text on a curved line. So something like the picture on the far right, top right. If you have an arc like that, I can show you how the text can be handled on that. And lastly, wrapping text around a cylindrical body. So we'll be actually digging into the sheet metal functionality to approach this as a good workaround that we have inside of Fusion to tackle something like this. Usually this is a, hey, ask questions. We'll get to at the end of the webinar kind of slide, but actually I like to change the word to share. I'd like to just learn more about you guys. If you guys use text at all in your models, or if you might start using it, or the scenarios that you guys have currently with your 3D modeling inside of Fusion. I'd like to learn a little bit more about that, see if I can help you guys. Send me any questions you may have, any issues as well. I'll be providing my email, of course, at the end of this webinar. And yeah, throughout the webinar, go ahead and comment in the GoToMeeting chat room. All right, so let's go ahead and get on to it. Here is a mug I created. Actually, it was going to be for one of our customers from Jim Cook Machining. They had a piece of aluminum laying around, and we wanted to machine it out to have an aluminum mug. So here is the design for that, with lettering on this, of course, but I took the lettering off so we can do that in today's session. So shout out to Jim Cook's Machining for giving me the idea of creating a mug in the first place. So usually when you go about creating text on maybe a curved surface like this, you might offset a plane from the origin, and then you just go straight to the text tool. And I want to put, of course, our name on here and center that appropriately. And then, as some of you may already know, you just go to the extrude tool, E for extrude, select the text that you want to extrude, and you won't just pull this arrow. Instead, you'd rather start this extrusion from an object, and that object is what we're going to choose right now, which is that face. And it's giving us a preview of what it wants to do right now, and it's going to automatically do a cut because the arrow that I pulled was going inwards. Or if I pull this arrow outwards, it can now become an extrusion, and now it's a join operation. And if we go ahead and hit OK, you can see that our text has been added to the 3 body, and now we're done. The webinar is over. Not exactly. So if we go in here, you might be able to get away with it from afar, but if you go in here closer, you can see that these lines are all perpendicular to that plane that we created with the text, and it's not exactly what you would imagine. You probably would want something more perpendicular to the tangent of this plane instead. So this line would be pointing in towards the origin rather than pointing straight outwards towards this area over here. So instead of doing it this way, I'm going to Control Z to undo that extrusion there. What I'm going to do instead is right-click on my text and then go to Explode Text. Now it turns the text that we had into a sketch. And this sketch can be extruded as well. But what I'm actually going to use this for is to split the face that we have going on in the background here. And if I hit faces to split, if I hover over this, it might select the entire face, which is fine until we choose our splitting tool and select the splitting tool, which is the K. And it actually goes through onto the other side as well. And that's probably not what we would want on the other side, just for, I know we won't extrude the other side, but just for good habits, you don't want that to be splitting your face on this side as well. So before we do the split on that end, what we're going to want to do, I'm going to go ahead and stop the sketch here, is I'm going to split this into 2 faces first, and then we'll do the K split. So I'm going to go to the split command again, split face, not the body. And I'm going to select the face I want to split. And the tool I want to split it with is going to be the plane on the origin there. And if I want to select through this model, I'm just going to click and hold my left mouse button and select that XY plane there. And now it's giving me a preview of the face it's going to split. And now we have 2 faces there. Now if we go back to splitting this face using the K, and it doesn't matter if the extend splitting tool is on or off in this case, because it's still going to go through to that. We have our K splitting this face there. And I'm going to go ahead and do that for the rest of the letters here. And I'm right-clicking and going into the 12 o'clock direction when applying the split face command, so then I can just go a lot faster without having to dig through my toolbox. And one more. And we're done. So we'll go ahead and hide that sketch. This is still the split face didn't do anything to my body. by any means. It just splits the face into different things you can work with. You can tell that because if I go to visual styles and go to shaded, this is what you would see in real life. It's just flat across the face there, but when you hover over it, you can start to see that there's some changes that are being made. So to give it some 3D depth, we can go ahead and go to press pull. And press pull, so let me go ahead and select these first. Press pull is kind of like an extrude, but if you start pulling it out like this from this model, it's actually going to increase in size because originally it's small over here, but it's larger over here because it's on a curved surface like that, and it's going to want to behave the way that it was already behaving. So it wants to get bigger and bigger and bigger the further out from the center of the circle or this mug that we get. And vice versa, when you go in, it's going to want to cut, or I guess add material on the inside. In this case, since this is hollow, it's going to want to go smaller and smaller and smaller. So in this case, let's go in maybe about 50 thousandths of an inch. And there we go. So that does give us, actually, we'll go out. So I need to prove a point here. So now, if you guys remember the line I selected on before, instead of coming straight forward to the plane that the text was created on, this text is going more perpendicular from the center there. It's pointing to the center and away from the center. So that's one step closer to where we want to be with this kind of model. However, and I'm going to try to prove a point here. I'll just go and do explode text. However, if I move this K way over here to the edge, and I did what we did earlier, and I wanted to create an extrusion, this K and the letters that are going off to the side, it's getting really stretched out. So it's not going to be good. Even if we did the press pull method, having a big K like that in comparison to the rest, or the big stretched out part like that compared to the rest of the letters, is not going to be something you'd want. So if you are working with just the middle of the mug, you can get away with the second attempt we tried there. But if you want this to maybe even essentially wrap around the whole mug, I'll show you another way you can do it manually. So first step we're going to take to do it manually is I'm going to go to the top here, create a sketch on the origin plane, and just create a line going straight out there. I'm going to use this line for my circular pattern. And then I'm going to start adding the quantity here for the KETIV. KETIV, perfect. So 5 of these down here. I don't mind the extra 2 at the top here. I just won't use them. And now I'm going to project the existing 3D body, and then go ahead and trim the excess here. So I can just click and hold, and it trims all of those. So now I'm getting this ready to make planes actually at the end of each of these points. And I'm going to do one more thing before I create those planes, is I'm going to create this sketch in the middle here, which will help me to center each one of my letters. All right, so just a little bit of construction here. But now I'm going to go in here to construct and use one of my favorite tools, which is plane along path. I'll select that plane here. If the distance equals 1, or I can just drag it, that means it's at the way end of the plane. And this plane along path is going to always be perfectly normal to your plane. So if you have a spline path, you can create this along that as well. And someone did ask, I'm taking a look at the questions. Someone did ask if we can, how we would machine this in real life. That might be an Alex question. We haven't machined this yet, or we haven't got around to machining this, but just going to show text today. Maybe that's something we can talk about offline. So, okay, we have these 5 planes. Now we can create the text on each one of them. So text created, I'm going to create text on the first plane here. And I kind of want to go back into the position. I just moved the mouse and now, or the plane, and now I can't see it. So I'm just going to hit look at and select that plane to look at again. All right, so back to my text. I'm going to create it at the end point of that line that I created on the other sketch. Put in a K. Give it a height of 1. All right, so that's the first one. Stop the sketch. And I'm going to do this for these other ones as well. So this is the way I found for now. If you guys have another way, feel free to share with us. But yeah, we would go through this one at a time here. Hopefully it's not too bad. But this will give us more of the result I think that we would be looking for. So, oh, I do want to capitalize these. Let's go E, and then give that T. All right, then we got 2 more. Using that reference point again in the center. And last one. Oops, that one's actually referencing, I want to reference that plane right there. Just double check there, okay. I might need to bring that one in just a little bit, but these ones seem to work out fine. So I'm just gonna, that would be something I would figure out in the future there. But for these 4 letters, let's go ahead and do the extrusion tool actually, and we're gonna select, I'll just go ahead and do the V while we're at it, but go ahead and select these 5 text. Once again, start it from that surface, and we'll go out about, yeah, 100,000ths of an inch. Well, maybe you didn't like those. So let's go back here. I'll just select the these first two here. And yeah, have it go out about 100 thousandths of an inch. I'm not sure why I didn't like this one here. Let's go ahead and see the T there. From that surface out 100 thousandths. Yeah, I would expect that we could do them at the same time. I've been doing them at the same time for the other ones, but decided to go with a different lettering for this in this case. Okay, well, let's go ahead and turn off these sketches here. In the future, I would make these the axes a little bit closer. I just wanted to try different lettering today. Didn't really, it's a little bit more spread out than I thought, but now we have a model. Even if the K is way over here to the left-hand side, at least it's not stretched out like it was when we did the front approach of splitting the face and setting it in that way. So that's what I was trying to show. Still, these lines still do go in to the middle, and that's kind of why I did it this way as well, because we want these parts to, these parts to extrude out normal to the tangent plane of the mug here. So got to touch this up a little bit, but I wanted to show the method of doing it and then move on to the next one here. So what I want to show now is how do you create text around maybe something like this. There's not that functionality here in the text tool, so let's go ahead and do that for you guys here. So I'll go ahead and actually do want this to be maybe 3 inches. I'll go ahead and do what we did similar to the other method, where we'd go in and create the patterns. And I want to do it on the top side here, so I'm going to go minus 180. And maybe for the KETIV, I might give it something else. I'll do test. We'll do 4 instead of 5 here. So TEST, okay. And now we can go ahead and add each letter of the text one at a time. So if you had maybe a longer name, you would have to have one line of these each for those letters. So the first letter I'm going to add here is the T. And then I'll go ahead and do the other ones as well. E, S, T. And if you want this to go along the arc here, you can use a constraint. Go down over here to the parallel constraint, and I can make this line that's correlated to the T text parallel to that line right there, and the constraint symbol just appeared for us. Same with the E, S, and T. So that's one way you can go about it. If you would rather have this T lined up perfectly at the center of this line, as well as the E and the rest of the letters, what you can do instead is create the letters up here. I'm going to dimension them to what they're already dimensioned with. So I'm not changing the numbers by any means. I just want to make sure these won't change when I start adding these other constraints that I'm about to do. Because now I'm going to do a midpoint constraint with this line and this point. This line, that point, bottom line, that point, the bottom line, that point. And now we can do the parallel constraints again with what we've done before. So those get lined up, and then they're at the center of these lines that you've created. And I did see out there that you might not be able to, or you might not need to create these lines to reference that, because there is something called curvature comb that you could turn on for the circle. However, with these curvature combs, I wasn't able to ever click on them or reference them by any means. But there is something like a curvature comb out there, and these help you to read the curves on maybe a spline or an arc. Maybe it'll make more sense when you're looking at that rather than just a circle like this. But these are out there, maybe for just looking references, not so much clicking references. But yeah, that exists. All right, so that's how you can create the lettering around the arc, whether you want it centered about the midpoint or whether you want it the quick and dirty way, which was just off to the side earlier. All right. And lastly, I wanted to show you guys the way you can use sheet metal and the folding and unfolding capabilities to create text that can go around something that's completely cylindrical. So to start off, we'll go ahead and go to the sheet metal environment. And this might be new to a lot of you guys, but the only thing that really changed was some of the tools up here. You have the flange tool, which is the 4-in-1 tool, and there's some sheet metal rules. But you don't have to worry too much about that yet. I'll show you what you can do with it, and then you can worry about it when you would like to use it or not. So we'll go ahead and create the cylinder. First, we'll start off with the circle. And then for the sheet metal purposes, we're going to have to cut off just a little bit of this, and it'll make sense why in a second here. Go ahead and trim that off in the middle. And now, instead of an extrusion, we're going to use the flange tool to create our sheet metal component. And this can be a ring. This could be just for something cylindrical there, maybe even the mug. And now we'd like to unfold this, and we can start adding text to it. But before we can do that, and the unfold tool is going to be located here, we're going to need a stationary entity. And there's nothing stationary for this model to reference yet, so that's why we can't unfold it. To create that stationary entity, I'm just going to do a quick and easy extrusion here. And it's trying to do a cut, and that's why it's not showing anything. So I'll just do a join instead and just extrude it out a little bit so it has that stationary reference. So now when we unfold the sheet metal, we can select this part for it to be stationary, and everything else that's curved can not be. And now this is where we can add our text. We can use the extrude tool. We don't have to use push-pull in this case, because the sheet metal functionality is going to take care of this itself. And after we're happy with our text, we'll go back to refold the faces. And that's it. And we have text that goes along the cylinder like that. And if you do want to fix the model over here, there's that little gap. I wouldn't recommend necessarily extruding that because it does not overlap perfectly. Maybe what you can do instead is create a sketch at the top of the model here. And then use that profile at the top here to fill in that gap. So now you have a 3D model. Essentially, you can just go back to the model workspace here. You have a 3D model that's completely cylindrical, that you have the letters that go perfectly around. And this was a lot faster than trying to manually do it. I wanted to show you the manual way as well, but this is a lot faster than manually approaching that here. All right. So that was the content I had for you guys today. Just to review, we went over the different types of extruding text onto the 3D model of the mug, whether we do the extrude command directly, whether we split the face and using press pull. Also, actually, one more thing before we go here, I do want to show you guys the image to SVG converter. So I'll go ahead and do it onto this side. So I didn't show you guys yet the way to if you had an image with the text on it, how to apply it to your model. So if I had a image saved, I can go to this website. I can go ahead and Google it, and it's going to be image to. Go ahead and Google image to SVG converter. It's going to be that first one right here, online SVG image converter. And I can go ahead and choose maybe the KETIV logo. It's going to convert, and it's going to load, or let me hit start conversion. Then it's going to go into my downloads folder as an SVG file extension. And then I can go back here to Fusion, go to Insert, SVG. And we've shown you guys this before, but for those of you who haven't seen it, this is a useful tool online that you can use to convert your files. And the image that you want to use or that you can convert should be pretty, not black and white, but they should have a good enough contrast so then the converter knows or can easily detect the differences and what you want to portray in your image. So now we have, now we can go browse to that SVG. Here it is right here. And this one's actually backwards because I'm on the other side, so I can go ahead and flip that. Use that to scale it smaller, and I can go ahead and place it there. And this is useful not only for text, but you can do any image using the image to SVG converter, because now you have the same green sketch that we saw from earlier, that from the explode, that you can use to add or remove materials to your model here. All right. Okay, back to the conclusion here. So went over how to extrude from the surface, how to split the face, the image to SVG converter, how to manually add each letter one at a time so that it's perpendicular to the plane that's perpendicular to that's tangential to the surface. We also went over how to create the text along the curved 2D sketch along the circle at the top of the circle, as well as the sheet metal route that we saw there at the end. So I'll go ahead and take a look at any questions that you guys may have had. All right. So one question was centering the letters on the reference line. So the reference line, in terms of, maybe it was what I did after, during the 2D sketch portion. Let's see here. This one, I was able to center the sketch, maybe, unless you were referring to the other one, Robert, during this one. Usually I would use, I never got around to fixing these letters here, but usually I was using another array of letters and it worked out. In this case, it happened to be stretched out a little bit and I need to go back and review some of the extrusions there, but that's usually how I would go about it, was to create kind of that sketch in the center to reference, and then the text can be placed all on the same plane and they're all tangential to the surface at the point in which they exist. Oh, you're saying on the V offset. So this one right here. Okay. So yeah, I would have to take a look more into it. Let's see here, I created that on that plane. But yeah, I'll take a look more into it. This might be something I could handle offline just to fix this V. Okay, I see a question for 3D printing as well. I think I'll handle that offline as well. How do I add text to a curved cylindrical shape with varied diameter as cylindrical goes up? Text in curved cylindrical shape with varied diameter as cylindrical cylinder goes up. Oh, something like a conical shape. Sounds like a mountain shape, if anything. Okay. Looks like I'm gonna have 2 conversations offline here. I don't think I want to have this webinar go on too much longer. If there's no like general questions, I guess. But yeah, thank you for helping me to fix this text here. All right. Does anyone else have any other questions? And yeah, Robert and Scott, I'll be responding to you guys offline. All right. Once again, here's my email address, and there's the KETIV phone number, so you can ask for Brian if you guys call in. But yeah, feel free to send out an email to me. I'd love to talk to you guys about anything Fusion 360, maybe fixing that text of mine. Thank you guys so much for joining. You guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.